What's up, friends? Today we're here to talk about the Exway Atlas Pro Gear Drive Edition, and this is the 200 mile review. So let's jump right into it. Alrighty, if you are new here, thank you for stopping by. Today is going to be a slightly different style of review than I normally do. Since I had the opportunity to do a first look video and first ride video on this board, which you can check out in the iCard. If you go up there, you will see first the first look and then the first ride. In those videos, I cover almost all of the specs of the board that you could possibly want. So I really don't see a reason to rehash those here in this video. So if you want to know the tech specs and stuff that I don't cover here, check it out there. Now, in today's video, I'm going to cover first the sections of the board that I did like, and we're going to talk about that in terms of ride feel and general user experience. Then we'll talk about a couple things that I don't like, and then we're just going to kick it off straight into the PSPEC score, which is my way of scoring the performance of a board, and then the RBEM score, and we'll just flush out the rest of the stuff there. So let's just go ahead and start by talking about what I did like on this board. All right, so let's just kind of go through my favorite parts of this board. And while this is technically an option for the Atlas Pro, one of my favorite things on this board has got to be the gear drives. Now, I've been a fan of gear drives for quite a while now, mostly because of the low maintenance and the ability to ride on any terrain without worrying about pebbles or sticks or sand or anything getting stuck in your belts. And these gear drives have been awesome. These are helical cut steel gear drives, so it's a steel pinion on a steel motor spur gear, and they've just been an awesome experience. They sound really nice and clean. They've been completely smooth, absolutely zero errors, zero maintenance, and like I said, 200 miles. Now, not 100% of the 200 miles was ridden by me. Since this board was sent over to me for both demos at the ESK8 events and for my YouTube channel, I have had this board going around hands, and quite a few people have ridden it. But myself, tracking miles on this, have done at least 120 miles on it, maybe more. I didn't track everything completely, so yeah, over 200 miles. The only real damage we have to the gear drives is minor scraping on the outside of the case, which is to be expected. Now, as for if you're going to feel the difference between the gear drive and the belt drive in terms of performance, I can't say because I haven't ridden the belt drive, but my understanding is that the ratio is fairly similar, and of course the power of the board itself is not going to change because it's still the same board. So first thing I love is the gear drives. They're just great. Honestly, I don't have anything bad to say about them. If I had to nitpick, I would say that the motor cages are not my favorite aesthetic design. I think that the gear drive overall is pretty large, and because of that, it is quite heavy. I'll put the weight on the screen of the whole board here. Yeah, the board is pretty heavy, especially with these gear drives. So this is not necessarily something you want to lug around a college campus or something like that all day. It's fine, like as long as you have decently strong arms and stuff, won't be a big deal. But yeah, gear drives, excellent. Another thing I really liked is these 7-inch tires. Now, I've not spent a lot of time on 7-inch tires, and I just really liked how these Exway slightly 2-in-1-ish knobby tires felt. As you can probably see, the rears are pretty bald here, so I should probably rotate those with the front, but they've done really well. They're super grippy. They're decently balanced, not perfect, but they're decent. And those are connected to these quick swap wheels. And I'll put a short clip on screen of me taking the rim off to switch the tire. Cool thing is that you can do this without actually taking the wheel off of the board. Pretty neat feature that I don't think really any other board out there has. So yeah, that's cool. The other thing I'm going to mention, actually two more things. I really like the deck. I think this is a really great shape for a carbon fiber deck, and while I've not ridden too many of them, I have ridden some that felt very bad. and this one is not one of them. The soft grip tape, which is a little bit foamy, in combination with the concave, makes this pretty comfortable, and even on the range test when I got up to 19 miles, I didn't really feel much foot fatigue, and it was a good time. When the board did die and I had to put it on my back in the backpack, yeah, it's heavy. Anyway, the power of this board is great as well. I can't imagine that the 4-wheel drive version is even more powerful, but this board is going to have more than enough power for most average ESK8 riders. Of course, it's not going to compare to my race board and whatnot, but it's not the point of this board. And it's only, I think, $2,000. But yeah, the power of this is pretty great. Good takeoff from a standstill, and it has okay power above 20, but not a ton. And it gets up to 28 to 30 miles an hour depending on your rider weight and your battery percentage. So I think those are the major things that I like. If there's anything else that I think of, I'll cover it later in the RBEM score section. We're going to talk about a couple things that were not my favorite on this board. The first of those being the ESC. Now, this is kind of a strange one because in general, my experience with the ESC was pretty great. And like I said, the power was good, but I have, I have all my settings maxed out in turbo mode to get the maximum power, and I have maximum braking. One thing I will say, the braking is great. You're able to skid the tires, which is exactly what I want because I want to be able to use the maximum friction that I have offered by my tires. So braking great, but in terms of power band, we have this weird portion between like 20 and 22 miles an hour where you're riding the thumb wheel at a very specific spot, and it just feels a little bit twitchy at that speed. And it's a little bit annoying because sometimes you ride at 20 to 23 miles an hour for extended periods of time because that's just a convenient speed to ride. And it just doesn't feel quite what I want it to feel like. On my DIY boards, riding at that speed, no problem, completely smooth, nothing weird. On here, sometimes I just got a little bit of power band flicker. I don't know how to describe it exactly. Some other people have felt it as well. If you know what I'm talking about and can describe it better, put a comment down below. But that was one thing that I was not a huge fan of. I think they have a little bit more tuning to do with their ESC, but overall it's pretty good. Now, another thing that was not my favorite is the trucks. Now, these trucks are good. They're great double kingpin trucks. They are more stiff than you would expect initially hopping on double kingpin trucks if you've been on a board that has super soft ones. So these will probably feel a little bit more like RKPs at first, but when you really get into turns, they're pretty good. But the thing is, they're still double kingpin trucks. So cruising up at 28 miles an hour, which is about the max that I was able to do on here, it's just not as stable as I would like. And if you switch the bushings out to the gray ones that are provided, those are less stable from my understanding, so I didn't even bother switching them out. But trucks are fine, but they're still double kingpins, and double kingpin is not my favorite. I kind of would like to see maybe a traditional kingpin version of this board in the future. Maybe that's something they could offer, but yeah, that's something that was not my favorite. Another random thing I'd like to mention is that this board does take quite a while to charge with the normal charger. I clocked in at about 4 hours, a little bit over 4 hours to charge it from completely empty to completely full. And while charging, these Exway GAN, whatever you want to call it, the 210 watt chargers, they get real hot. And I'll put a couple of pictures on screen of my thermal camera images of it while it was charging. And yeah, it gets up to about 84 degrees Celsius max, sometimes 82 to 84 C, which is around like 170 Fahrenheit. So when you're charging this board, I would highly recommend putting the charger on a metal surface or a concrete surface or something like that that is not going to be affected by heat of that high level. I'm not sure if there are any regulations around chargers that would mention heat ratings, but just something to be aware of. I wouldn't want a child to be touching something that hot, and it's not gonna burn you, but if you hold it for too long, it will. So yeah, something to mention there. And If you use the super fast charger, the 1000 watt, which I do not recommend using on this board very often, cranking 20 amps into a 4P pack puts you at 5 amps per cell, and that's pretty high for a 4000 milliamp hour mediocre cell, which in here is the Lishen 2170 LA cell. So it's an average cell. I definitely do not recommend using the 1000 watt charger on just this board very often, because it's going to stress your batteries and cause your longevity of them to be less than I think most people would want. So that's something else to mention. All right, we're going to jump into the PSPEC score now. And if you haven't heard of that before, you should check out my previous review on the Exway Flex ER up in the iCard. And is that up here, up there? I don't know, whatever. Check it out there and you'll see what it is. But basically, the PSPEC score is a performance score that categorizes the most important parts of a board's performance, at least in my opinion, and I talked to some community members and they also felt the same way. So the PSPEC score combines the acceleration, the torque, the top speed, the braking, and the range of a board to rate it in a way that is comparable to every other board that I test on this channel. Eventually, these scores will all be on my website, which is currently in development, but we're just going to go over the Excel graphs today and we're going to talk about the numbers. So the first category is acceleration, and this is from a standstill, 0 to 20 miles an hour. And of course, I'll have some footage on screen and I'll just talk over it. So the Exway Atlas Pro came in at an a best time of 3.95 seconds, 0 to 20 miles an hour. And that's pretty fast, to be honest. If comparing to a much more budget board like the Flex ER, that comes in at 7.5 seconds. The Rebel Kit came in at 7.52 seconds. And little spoilers here, but the Exway Flex Pro came in at 4.93 seconds. So pretty fast time, and honestly, it's pretty controllable because of the large tires and the amount of grip that you have. But yeah, you get up to that top speed pretty fast. And 3.95 seconds, 0 to 20 is not bad. Now, the torque is the next category, and for the torque, I actually do a calculation from a scale that I connect to the back of the board, and that is hooked up to a pole, and we pull on it as hard as we can until the board stops, either via traction running out or just running out of power. So the Exway Atlas Pro came in at the highest torque rating so far at 53.67 Newton meters. And if you don't know what that is, I'm sorry, that's just a torque figure, but you can convert that to foot-pounds if you like. And yeah, 53.67 Newton meters is pretty high, especially when you compare it to something like the Flex ER, which only had 8.85 Newton meters, or the Rebel Kit, which had 10 Newton meters. So almost 5 times more powerful than either of those boards in terms of take-off torque. Now, torque is not everything, but it is important. So what about the top speed? Well, the top speed on the Atlas Pro was around 28 to 29 miles an hour. And in fact, I am actually forgetting one thing here. It's not part of the PSPEC score, but the 100 meter sprint is also part of my standardized testing now. And for the 100 meter sprint, the Exway Atlas Pro came out to a minimum time of 9.2 seconds, which is also the fastest 100 meter sprint time we have on the channel so far. I have not tested my DIY boards yet. I'm going to get that data on there as soon as I can, but it takes time to do all of these runs because I do 4 runs per test to get all these numbers. So yeah, it takes a bit of time, but we'll get there eventually. So 9.2 seconds minimum and about 10 seconds average to do a 100 meter sprint. Not bad at all, coming in at a pretty fast time. Now, the last thing to talk about, or sorry, 2 more things. We got braking, and the Atlas Pro came out to 20.83 feet, and that is going from 15 miles an hour and slamming on the brakes as hard as possible. And then we record the amount of feet it takes to go from 15 to 0. I will have footage on screen for that. And For the Atlas Pro, we had a best braking distance of 20.83 feet. Now, that's pretty good. The brakes on this board are awesome. I had them set to absolute max, and yeah, great brakes. I was skidding a little bit, but when I'm doing these max braking tests, I put all the weight on the back foot to make sure I skid the least amount possible. So, pretty great. Much better than the 30 feet from the Rebel kit or the 32 feet from the Flex ER. Again, 15 miles to 0, standardized test. Now, the final thing in the PSPEC score is the range, and that came out to 19.2 miles. Now, I have a little bit of footage from the range test, and I'm going to pop that on screen here. What's up, guys? Today we are range testing the Atlas Pro, and I've actually put a lot of miles on this board. Right now, the remote says 187. Not all of it has been me personally, but yeah, it's doing well so far. So today we're going to see how much range it has. My guess is around 16 miles, but we'll see. It might be less. I've been riding most of the miles on this with the aux pack, so yeah, we'll see. I'll just provide updates along the way. I'm not going to record a ton during this range test. All right, so we have just completed our second lap on the Atlas Pro, and we've completed 14.2 miles so far. I don't think it's going to make another full lap. The top speed has started to decrease a bit, and the acceleration is not what it was at higher voltages either, so we're just gonna have to see how it goes. I'm gonna go home and grab my Exway backpack so I can carry a spare board for when this thing dies, and we'll continue the range test. Alright, so right now we are at the end of this range test. You can see we're going about 7 miles an hour, and we are crawling up the hill that the Rebel kit died on when we were doing the Rebel kit range test a long time ago. Weird coincidence. But anyway, this is the third lap around. We're currently reading 19.2 miles on the remote, which is not bad at all, but I have more information. At about 16 miles, the acceleration is pretty bad. Like, it's been bad for quite a while. Almost this whole loop, it's been reduced. You could tell that the board was getting low on battery. So at about 16 miles, the top speed was reduced down to about 16 miles an hour, about 20 miles an hour. And I rode out at about 20 miles an hour for the next, oh, my remote is very angry at me. There's a constant vibration going right now. I think it's time to switch boards. Anyway, at the 16 mile mark, the top speed was reduced to about 20 miles an hour. In addition to that, the bar went down to 1, so we are at 1 bar. Oh man, we're at 1 bar of battery left, and it gave me a warning on the remote saying low battery. And so I figured the end was near, and it lasted longer than I expected. And then after that, at about 17.5 miles, the remote went down to 1 bar flashing, which is what it's on right now. You might be able to see it. 1 bar flashing on there. And the top speed was reduced on flat to about 15 miles an hour if there's any kind of slope at all. And then, as you just saw, we're coming up the hill, and yeah, it's pretty much gone. I'm not going to count this last bit of range as anything useful, so we're just going to switch to the other board that I've got with me, and we'll call it a day. 19.3 miles, better than I expected, but the last 3 miles were kind of not very useful. Like, you'll get home, but you won't get there very fast. So there you go. And then one final thing, my testing route is the same route that I use for the wheels. So it's mostly flat all the way around the 7 miles with 1 large downhill and uphill, and we're on that hill right now. So yeah, there you go. There's the range test. All right, hopefully you found that interesting, but yeah, essentially, to cut it short, the range that I got on the Atlas Pro till it was dead. I consider dead like 3 miles an hour going up a slight incline, so yeah. I got 19.2 miles, and funnily enough, it died on the same hill that the Revel kit died on, albeit 2 laps further, 7:14, 20, no, a lap further than the Revel kit. But yeah, so we got 19.2 miles. I don't remember what they advertise on the website, but everyone knows that the advertisement numbers are just a bunch of bogus data. So there you go, 19.2 miles of my standard testing route. And this is about 170 pound rider to 175 with gear. And this is my test route that I use for wheels, which is 15 miles an hour average for the first third, 20 to 25 mile an hour average for the second third, and then for the final third is again 15 to 20 miles an hour. So doing that test has been pretty great for me. It takes a lot of time, so that's why it takes so long to do these reviews. But 19.2 miles is about what I would expect to get max. What I would actually have stopped riding at is probably around 16 miles, because that's when the board started cutting off a little bit of speed. We were slowed down to about 20 miles an hour. If there was any incline, it slowed down to about 15. So not really going to be keeping up with most group rides at that point. So real range on the Atlas Pro with these 7-inch tires at like around 35 PSI is going to be probably 15 miles, but you know, my official range test is 19. So enough about that. The range is decent. It's a 12S4P battery of the lithium cells, and I wouldn't expect a lot more from it than that. So overall, I'm pretty happy. So our total PSPEC score, which is subject to change, and like I said, eventually these will all be on my website and you'll be able to see them each video for each board. But right now, the PSPEC score is 49.7, and that is a combination of all of the scores from the acceleration, torque, top speed, braking, and range, all put together through a formula that is weighted towards certain aspects that I felt were more important. So it is a slightly subjective final score, but you can be confident that all of the numbers that I got were completely objective through my testing. So the PSPEC score that I give to the Atlas Pro is 49.7. That's coming in at almost double the Flex ER and the Revel kit. Of course, this is not taking into account value or anything, and that is what the RBEM score is for. And we're going to go ahead and hop into that section. Now, I love this data from the PSPEC score, and I hope that you guys love it too. If you have any suggestions for what else that I might consider adding to the PSPEC score, please leave a comment below and leave a like for all my testing, because it really means a lot to see those likes. And yeah, I put a lot of work into these videos. So let's go on to the RBEM score. All right, so RBEM score time, and this is all of my subjective parts of the board, and that includes build quality, deck, remote, ESC, trucks and bushings, wheel options, water resistance, customer service, and finally, price and value. Now, we're gonna go through these one by one, and I'm gonna keep it a little bit short for these because honestly, these videos get long anyway. So I'm gonna give you the details where it counts, but here we go. So build quality is first, and build quality on the Atlas Pro is very good. I gave it a 9 out of 10, and honestly, there's not really much to complain about. The gear drives are built really well. The wheels are built well. Almost everything is high quality aluminum components made out of 6061 T6. The hangers are forged and CNC'd, and I've seen 1 or 2 people break these hangers, but you know, it's really hard for me to gauge exactly how many things the community has broken. For me, honestly, nothing has gone wrong on this board at all, which is a great sign for me, obviously. But I understand some people will have issues, and people will have issues with every board. But for this board, build quality is very high. High quality metals, high quality plastics, grip tape is great. Screws are good. And yeah, not much to say about it. Honestly, everything's great. The machining is great. Paint's good. Yeah, not much to complain about. 9 out of 10. For the deck of the Atlas Pro, we have a carbon fiber unibody deck, which is built in a tub design. And this deck, of course, will be a composite of both carbon fiber, resin, and some kind of filler material. I've not seen one of these decks broken yet, so I don't know what that filler material is. It's likely some kind of foam honeycomb or something like that. That's typically what we use in composites in engineering. So you got that in there, and honestly, this deck is super strong. I would be surprised if many people were able to break it, especially after seeing how much it flexed when I was doing the torque testing. It really bent a lot and it didn't crack or anything, so that's great. The lid is definitely an essential part of the deck. Obviously, it's giving it a little more strength, being screwed in all the way across. The tub inside is made well. When we opened it up in the Oxpack installation video, you were able to see that. So yeah, no real complaints about the deck. The concave is great. The grip tape is good. And honestly, it's just a good carbon fiber deck. A lot of people don't like carbon fiber because you can feel more road vibrations, but 7-inch tires and the foam cut out most of that. So there you go. That is 9 out of 10 for the deck. So the remote for the Atlas Pro is the Exway R3 remote. And honestly, there's not much to complain about on this remote. It's a basic thumb wheel remote and the spring tension of the thumb wheel is pretty good. It's easily controllable, fits in your hand well, it works with gloves. Has a little tiny screen on it, so it loses some points there. Of course, you don't have a lot of functionality, but you have the ability to change a couple things on the remote, including units, and you can adjust your gear ratio and stuff. All of this can also be done through the app, which is super useful, but honestly, the remote's fine. Nothing special, nothing to complain about. It does charge with USB-C, which is great, easily compatible with your phone charger or whatever. One button operation on here. Again, you're not really doing a whole lot with this remote, but it is nice that you can see the distance you've traveled and the current speed that you're riding. For the remote, we give a 7 out of 10. Honestly, not bad. Next up for the score is the ESC, and the ESC in the Atlas Pro is pretty good. It is Exway's latest version of their ESC, and of course built by Hobbywing. It connects to the app on the phone, the ESK8 app. It's a nice app. You can configure the acceleration and braking and each of the different speed modes. You can control that. You can also track your rides, but that didn't work super well for me. I found that the connection to the board was a little bit unstable and it just didn't track as well as I wanted. I do find it a little bit annoying that you have to put your remote into configuration mode in order to configure the settings on the ESC through your phone. Felt that was a little bit odd, but not a huge deal. Overall, the ESC is good. It provides good power. The braking is smooth and linear. The one complaint that I have is that honestly the torque from 20 to 28 is not super great, and that weird power band issue that I was having from 20 to 22 miles an hour I would like to see fixed in the future. But overall, pretty good, and it gets a 8 out of 10 for doing almost everything that I want it to. Now, the Atlas Pro has a set of double kingpin trucks on here, but I believe they're 10.5 inches wide. They call them their Trist double kingpin trucks. They're forged and CNC'd, tend to be pretty strong from what I've seen. No issues with them at all to speak of. Not my favorite ride ever. They are fairly stiff. They don't feel as much like a double kingpin as some others do, but they're still very maneuverable, and they are pretty stable up to about 27 miles an hour. That 27 to 30, if you can get there, is slightly more unstable, but still manageable. Yeah, so overall they were pretty good. I just wish that they were tuned a little bit better. I didn't try any riptide bushings on this board, but I just didn't have that awesome feeling that I have on the Exway 45-degree RKP trucks on the Flex Pro. So for those reasons, I'm giving them a 7 out of 10. Next up is wheel options. Now, we will be fairly limited for wheels on the Atlas Pro. As far as I know, the only wheel that is currently capable of supporting the gear drive is the one that's on here already. So while you can probably change to other wheels with some custom parts, it's not very easy to do, and most people are not going to be able to do that. So I'm giving it a 3.7 out of 5 because you are able to change the tires on here. You can use 6-inch tires if you really want. You might scrape a little bit, but you can use 6-inch tires. You can go up to 8-inch if you really want to, and you can use the 7s here. So decent amount of things available. You're not going to be using urethane on this board, of course, because these gear drives are quite large. So yeah, for those reasons, 3.7 out of 5. Now, water resistance is not something that I usually like to use, but I did actually ride this board in damp conditions shortly after some rain, and it did just fine. While opening up the board, there is a huge gasket that goes around the lid, and that's pretty much the only place that water can get in. The holes that the cables for the motors go through are very well gasketed, so I don't think water's going to be getting in there. And the board has an official rating of IP55, which means I believe it can get splashed indirectly for extended periods of time without any issue. However, I never recommend riding your electric skateboard in the rain because it's just a bad idea. The roads are slippery, you can't see oil on the ground very easily, your braking is going to be reduced by traction, and there's always the risk that water does get into your board. So be careful if you ride in the rain, but if you're going to, this board may be better than certain others on the market. So anyway, for the waterproof rating or water resistance rating, I'm giving it a 4.5 out of 5 because IP55 is not bad at all, and it's up there with the other boards that I've tested. All right, now customer service. Now this is a tough one because often YouTubers like myself get treated a little bit nicer than the general public because obviously we're representing the company and reviewing their products, so they're going to try harder. In my experience, Exway has been pretty communicative with me. I think they could be a little bit faster in response sometimes, but my contact person was really great to me, so obviously that's, oh, good for me, yeah. But we have some other Exway boards in the local community, and people have had really fast response time recently and easy replacement of parts, even though they're coming from China. But of course, there's always going to be people that have bad experiences, and I can't overlook those. Some people have had their ESCs go out, and some people have had batteries die. Things happen, and sometimes you need to use the customer service. Overall, I would say that it's fairly good. Of course, we're dealing with a foreign company here, so you can never trust fully that they're going to respond as fast as an American company does, or to the amount of comprehension that some American companies have as well. So overall, not bad, not the worst. So we're giving it a 3.7 out of 5. Of course, companies can always improve. So if you have positive things to say or negative things to say about their service, be sure to leave those in the comments so I can learn about it some more. So our final category is price and value. And this is, again, kind of a tough one because it's a little bit subjective, but looking at the product page right now, the Atlas Pro 2-wheel drive with the gear drive, which in my opinion is the one that you should get, is $1,949. Now, this is a good amount of money, and whether or not it's worth it, of course, is going to be up to you. The belt drive is $1,649, but I just think the gear drive is great, and I like gear drive. So, sorry, that would be the one that I recommend. But overall, for what you're getting for $1,950, you get a 12S4P battery, you get a fairly powerful controller and very well protected large motors, you get 7-inch pneumatic tires, and you get a very durable gear drive with the option to eventually, if you decided to, upgrade to the aux pack and get more range. Now, of course, this is not the choice for anyone that has that does not like double kingpin trucks, because right now that is the only option you can have with this board. So yeah, overall, honestly, the value is fairly high for this board. I do like this board a lot, and honestly, there are other boards on my shelf that I might pick this over because it's just a fun board to ride, and for certain speeds and certain conditions, I like it a lot. So for the value and price, I'm giving it a 4 out of 5. I think there are other higher value boards out there for sure but for what you get and what you can do with this, I think it's a fairly good buy. So there you go. All right, summing up all of the scores from the RBEM score, we come out to 55.9, and that is out of a maximum of 70 on my scale chart at this time. Now, that's coming out pretty high. That's one of my highest on here, including all of the other boards that you have not seen yet. I'm gonna black out the names probably. I don't know, I'll figure it out in editing, but 55.9 is pretty high. Honestly, it's a great board, and I have a lot of great things to say about it. If anyone says, should I buy an Atlas Pro? I'll say yes, probably, but also consider DIY because I love DIY. I'm always going to be a DIY guy, and that's not going to change. So anyway, great board overall, and I think it's time to do a conclusion and an outro. So final summary of my thoughts on the Atlas Pro gear drive. Now, this video has been fairly positive overall because honestly, I just haven't had any problems with this board. I've had a couple issues related to the aux pack, but I don't feel those are reflective of the board by itself. And the board by itself getting you 15 fun miles of range on these 7-inch pneumatics with gear drive, honestly, that's gonna be enough for a lot of people. And the acceleration and braking are great, trucks are good, and there's really not a whole lot that goes wrong here in my opinion. Of course, some people have had issues, but we can't look at only the negative people because most of the time the negative Nancys are the loudest of the bunch, and the people that love their boards just don't say anything. So I'm here to tell you that I like this board a lot, and while this board was sent to me by Exway, I've been riding this for almost at least 120 to 150 miles, and I still like it a lot. So does that make it invalid? I don't think so. Exway has not told me to say anything particular in this video. In fact, they've been waiting for this video for a long time. So thank you guys for being chill with me, letting me do my full testing, and providing my audience with an awesome, detailed, and technical review. So if you didn't catch my drift, Exway sent me this board quite a while ago to do demos with and review on my channel. So thank you to them for being chill and giving me this opportunity to test out this awesome board. So if you have any questions or any comments about Exway or this board, of course, leave them down in the comments below, and give me a like if you like all the effort that went into this video, because man, these things take forever, but I do them for you guys. So let me know, and stay safe, keep on riding, and peace out.